So I started this post at the beginning of the year, and obviously it's a high-ranking position, right? It's part of your exco, part of the management system of the faculty itself, and it's learning and teaching. And in my application, I had to put together my strategy. And my strategy in itself is centralized around providing a voice to students, right? When it comes to aspects of curriculum development, when it comes to aspects of learning and teaching. And I'm just checking now as I'm speaking, the drilling is taking place in the background. Can you hear what I'm saying, or is it causing a major disruption? Please say nothing at all. Okay, we're all good. Thumbs up, we're all good. Thank you for that. Right. So obviously, it's taken me a couple of months. I started this post in February, and it's taken me up until now, September, right? We're into September, where I'm starting to understand what this role is about. And what I'm going to do today is I've started this introduction to a working relationship or even a situationship that I'm trying to establish with students in the Faculty of Health Sciences across the 11 departments. Now, if you know, the health sciences in itself has a very specific and unique set of requirements that keeps its students and its curriculum balanced in the way that it is. And that is because we are governed in many ways by our regulatory bodies. So if you are a nursing student, then you know that the Nursing Council, the Pharmacy Council, and for other professionals in the in the health sciences faculty, we have the Health Professions Council of South Africa, the HPCSA, with which we need to register at the end of our training. But these regulatory bodies also have a set of their own requirements that they expect students to sit with, a set of competencies that you need to develop within a particular discipline for you to be recognized as a professional within that field. And they take that set of competencies and requirements and they give it to university departments. And they say, dear psychology, we expect you to teach your students in the clinical psychology programs X, Y, and Z. And at the same time, those departments have to take into account the Center for Higher Education, the CHE's requirements, that is the national requirements for particular degrees and qualifications. And at the end of it, you are sitting in your departments with programs that have been accredited and approved, because each module and each subject either builds into the other, you know, and cascades and develops your understanding of maybe human behavior, if it's psychology, or how the human body works with psychopharmacology or nursing science, etc., and so on. Okay. Now, this is a lot that I'm actually describing and sharing, but I guess that the starting point for this is for me to recognize that, you know, as I'm talking about learning and teaching, as students, you don't understand much of what it entails. You don't quite understand what this learning and teaching is about. So I'm going to give you a bit of a history, a lesson here, 101, in terms of some of the core fundamentals that govern and define what a university is made up of. And three of those principles or pillars that guide a university and a qualification in a university is research, it's community engagement, and it's obviously learning and teaching, meaning the sorts of learning we expect our students to embody. How do our students learn? Which philosophies are underpinning the teaching of our students? What pedagogies do we implement? And some of you have probably heard this humanizing pedagogy that we speak about. And the university and the faculty has certain values. And these values are what drive the manner in which we want our students to learn. Because at the end of the day, you have been molded by Nelson Mandela University's framework. Okay, and that framework is encompassed by certain values, certain ideas, and certain notions. And our curriculums and the practicums that we provide you with are also then aligned therewith. And we hope that our graduate attributes are something that you are familiar with, but hopefully through these sessions, we will also get you to understand that. Now, in the health sciences, there isn't typically meant to be someone who, in all of the faculties, there's no directors of learning and teaching per se. It's just the health sciences. And that came as a prescription and a very strong recommendation from the Health Professions Council who basically stated that because of the uniqueness that comes with health science training and education, you need to have a designated person who is able to strategically hold the ambit of teaching and learning for these 11 departments. And so the role was created, and strategically, it's here to ensure that each department is aware of when they are having the recommendations, when they're having the field visits from, the recommendation of the bodies, the regulatory bodies that come to visit, etc. At the moment, the university is actually being regulated per se. The CHE is here, and there's an evaluation of the entire institution. Some of your students have been called into this. So show of thumbs. I think you probably have been in these meetings by now, or not. I know some of you probably will with the CHE visit. I know that some of my psych students will actually be doing this. So I'm going to stop at this point now and say, I hope I'm making sense, right? As the person who's now looking at strategically developing learning and teaching for the Faculty of Health Sciences, I cannot do so without interacting with the students. And over the past couple of months, I've been going into your departments and chatting to your lecturers and trying to get a sense of how do they understand learning and teaching. It's now time for me to work with students and get a sense of what is your understanding and input, because this bottom-up approach and bringing and centralizing students' voices in the education and in the curriculum becomes a very important ambit to the work that I do. And I'm also joined today by Carmen and by Nati. I think at this point, I just want to give the drilling upstairs a bit of a chance to do its thing. And I'm going to ask Nati and Carmen to introduce themselves briefly and tell you some of the work that they do. Let's start with Carmen. Carmen? You muted, Carmen.
Second time for the day I'm doing that mistake. Good afternoon. It's just wonderful to be with you this afternoon. I am excited for this engagement that we're going to have with the students and this platform that has been created to give you a voice. And I'm looking forward to you actually using this as a springboard for us to actually take things further within the faculty. I'm Carmen Whittle, as Prof has said, and I've got a few years of lecturing experience. I've been wearing that hat for some years now. I won't tell you how many years because I'll be giving away my age. But I've been in this Directorate of Learning and Teaching within the faculty since 2020. And as we said, it's just so important for us to know what it is that we need to do to enhance your learning experience within the faculty. So let's see where this takes us, and looking forward to it. Thanks, Prof Ally.
Thank you, Carmen. I just want to say that you guys have probably heard over the couple of months since COVID has come in, about online learning and these hybrid approaches to learning and teaching. And this is the space where we're actually going to unpack what these actually imply and what they mean. And what does it mean to you as a student? What are your expectations? What's the lecturer expectations, etc. What these sessions are not, let me just put it out there to you. These are not gripe sessions. These are not sessions for you to, name and shame your lecturers. This is not what that is about. It's a facilitative, constructive, critical space where I really want us as students to start embodying the basic principles that I'm sure you will start hearing about quite often. Interprofessional education, work-integrated learning for the health science professionals. And as this group develops, I'm hoping that the student representations from different departments will also increase to the point where this could even become a space where we present a case study, and students from different departments would then give their input, their intellectual input, the knowledge capacity that they've been developing, and comprehensively and holistically and together, interprofessionally, we would then build a profile of this individual. And that is something along the lines of how our learning and teaching philosophies in the faculty very practically manifests. There's a lot of words that people use, humanizing pedagogies and excellence and diversity and blah, blah, blah. But in practice, we've got these projects that are meant to include you. But obviously, it depends on the level of interaction and engagement that we start facilitating and developing. Now, I'm going to introduce you or hand over to Nati, who is the student advisor. So for the faculty, and Nati, can you please just explain to everyone what it is that you do and who it is that you actually are?
Good afternoon, Prof. Do I have to have my camera on? Hi, guys. Sorry, my network's a little bit slow, but I'll try. My name is Ms. Nati Nelani. I am the faculty's academic advisor. My role currently in the faculty started in 2019, where the faculty actually decided to have a former student, I am a former student, who's familiar with the faculty, familiar with student struggles, familiar with academic struggles, to be able to come into a different perspective where I am recently graduated, qualified in my profession, but am closer to the ground than your senior management would be. And from there, take on the role of advising students. And that is from transitioning from high school into higher education. So where are you from? If you're from a rural area or if you're from a metropolitan area like your Cape Town, Joburg, and how is that different to Port Elizabeth? Are you adjusting well? And from there we need to develop who you are as a person. How are you as a person adjusting to your academics? Are you struggling? And that's where the faculty decided that we needed someone in this role. And I am that someone. And just to highlight basically the services that I offer, so I do one-on-one sessions with students, and that's through email. So whenever you are free, you may email me at nati.nelani@mandela.ac.za, and I'll try and see if your free time links up with my calendar. If it doesn't, then we'll try and find some time in between where we can meet. And there we deal with you and yourself, your concept of self, and how do you identify yourself with your studies. Have you transitioned? Have you found friends? How is res life? And how does that holistically connect and move into you succeeding as a student? I also do development sessions, which deal with goal setting, time management, coping skills, note taking. So more or less, it just depends on the issues that students have. Then I'll put you into a little focus group where I can have a 3-week development session week with you, where we can go through all of these, issues that you might be dealing with. In the beginning of the year, from January till March, I deal with registration issues, accommodation, registration exemption, and financial aid assistance. I am available if the queues of financial aid are too long. I do have access to look through that system as well. So we kind of have a perk as health science. Whoop, whoop. And then lastly but not least, my main job is to actually assist you with academic planning and assessment scheduling. So each term I'll meet you once where we can go through every single module that you have as per your outlines, and we will plot on a calendar when you have your assessments, when you have your tests. And then from there, we do a little bit of a routine that I've found to work with students, where we move back a couple of days and plot in different times where you can actually dedicate a time for a specific module so that you don't overexert yourself in a certain module that will probably only need 3 hours a week of your time. And then after that, we'll meet again in the second term to actually plot your second term. And right before your assessments, we do exam prep. So if you need assistance with regards to how to take notes from the notes you've already taken, how are you going to summarize, how to use cue cards, how to use acronyms, I also assist students with that. So that's my job from my side. Thanks, Prof.
Thanks for that, Nati. So guys, what you're seeing here is I'm introducing you to my colleagues and the individuals that I work with in my role. And what we've been doing is, well, what they've been helping me do is to paint a picture of how learning and teaching has been taking place in the faculty and really trying to understand the layers within which it functions. Because obviously we take directives from the university and the institution's learning and teaching framework. And we just a little speck within that. But our faculty, which is one of many other specs, meaning other faculties, have their own uniqueness within which we need to function. And we are trying to assist students from the first year all the way through the many years of their studies with whatever assistance it is that they feel they may need. For example, the transition to first year is not easy, especially with the online spaces where many students, including some of you sitting or in this particular meeting today, have never been in a physical, environment of learning and teaching for an expanded or extended time period. So that experience in itself is very shifted, where the reliance on technology, for example, Moodle, which is our learning, e-platform, um, that understanding is something that kind of develops over time. You get used to Moodle. It's not something that you just immediately develop. So we have these programs, we have these workshops for students who are there to, just to transition you, even with regards to the library. Did you know that there are programs and workshops that can aid you and guide you with how to, do library searches, in-depth searches for journal articles, for research that you need for your particular assignments? These processes and structures are in place to assist our students. And unfortunately, what we're finding is that there is a gap between all of these processes and all of these available resources and our students understanding and grabbing onto them. And we are here essentially like the middleman, going to pull the lecturers and the students towards these spaces so that there is a nice integral development that takes place, bottom up and from the top down. And I guess at this point, I know, Kyla, you're very excited about this, saying that I wish we knew about this. And this is where we're now starting to create the space of sharing information on how the faculty and how the university is actually involved in attempts to reach out to students as best as we can. And I'm not saying it is enough. I'm not saying it is the best, but we now need to work constructively with our students to hear their voices and what their experiences are. And again, these sessions are going to be what I would term safe spaces, because we're not going to go in. Obviously, I'll be giving feedback to faculty as I do with all of my meetings with the departments, but I don't call out students' names. I'll say overall, there's a theme of frustration with blah, blah, blah. No person will ever be called out. That was really stupid, actually, and defies the purpose of establishing a relationship with one's students. So I'm going to actually jump into the deep end here with you, and I'm going to throw a question your way. We're in a post-pandemic world now. There's no doubt about that. And there's no way, and there's no doubt, in fact, that we are ever going to go back to ways that we were. That's a definite. We're not going back to how things were done. So my question to you then is, how has the hybrid learning and teaching environment been experienced by you individually? I want you to think about this. How has the hybrid learning and teaching environment been experienced by you? And I want you to think about this in terms of, what are you receiving in the classroom, this online classroom environment? What were your expectations of it? What are still your expectations? What are some of your frustrations and annoyances? And also, what are some of the things that you feel could maybe develop and enhance that environment? Now, before you throw tomatoes and stones my way to saying to me, Prof, we are just sick and tired of this online space. I know I'm tired of it as well. But the reality is that in 2023, we will not be going, we are going back to face, but there's a 30% component with some modules and with some of your lecturing that will remain hybrid. And obviously, there has to become a sense of, we have to develop a sense of comfortability with how hybrid learning and teaching is taking place. Okay, so I just want to get a sense from you, what has your experience been like? And I don't know if any of you would be brave enough to actually speak to me about this, but now's your opportunity and chance. Nathaniel?
Thank you, sir. For me personally, this online learning has been useful for me because I do enjoy studying at my own pace, which I think is a big advantage of the nature of online learning. But I do have many friends, some friends who have actually dropped out because of the nature of learning, because they didn't have the skills to self-study to the extent that we need to with online learning, and they couldn't keep their attention in the lectures because they were online and not in person. So that is my experience.
Sure. Thank you for that, Nathaniel. I mean, I guess again, it's boiling down to something that we might not even think about. It's that self-study ability, for you to sit on your own in a very confined space, your bedroom or at home, without students around you, just taking in that sort of information. It's not an easy thing. And to hear that students have been dropping out because of this is heartbreaking. It's not something I think anyone sets out to do when you begin your studies. Sia, I see your hand up as well.
Yes, thank you, Prof. Hello, everyone. I think with my experience of online learning, I do agree with Nathaniel in the sense that it has been helpful, especially when someone's ill or there's an emergency, you can still attend classes and you don't miss out. But also at the same time, even from first year, I was for psychology modules. I felt very sad of missing out on the experience or experiencing our lecturers, because you could hear the passion, for example, you, Prof, passion in their voice when they teach something and they want us to engage. But online learning kind of puts the screen between us, that we don't have that experience, or I could imagine discussions we would be able to have in class with students, whereas group work did help in meeting students and we actually share passion and ideas. And it's like, that would have been great. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I hear you, Sia. And I mean, to those of you, I don't think you would have done this, but I'm talking 2016, 2017, 18, and 19 when I was doing social psychology. I think it was even up until 2018. And the module, there was a section when it came to gender and body objectification. And if you know me, you know I'm also a fan of Nicki Minaj, quite ironically, but I really like her music and what she stands for. But I played Anaconda in class. The students they did not see this coming. They had no idea in this huge lecture hall. That's how I started my class. I just clicked play on this video. The lights I dimmed and this video played because I was trying to get across the point. And the entire audience or this entire student body in that lecture hall started singing. The students were chanting the Anaconda lyrics. And I mean, I had to kind of calm things down because the lectures taking place in the other rooms. But these are, and I get what you're saying, Sia, it's the experience of being in the classroom with your lecturers, because each of us, we have our own particular swag and our own way of teaching, our own uniqueness that comes alive in a real-time context. Remember that none of your lecturers were taught how to teach online. Lecturing for us online was just as novel and new to you guys. In fact, we had no chance to actually adapt. It was, today is COVID, you're going into lockdown, tomorrow you are online, deal with it. So for many lecturers, I think till today, they still have this anxiety around showing their faces and actually just, being online because it's anxiety provoking. And then there are others who have just adapted. I won't say names or anything, but yeah. So I don't know. I guess that's a very big thing, guys, that you've missed out on that particular experience. I want to have a look at some of the comments here that are coming in. Nati, I see your hand is up. Can you let me take your comment now, Nati?
No, actually, I was going to say there's comments in the comment section.
Okay. so Present, I see what you're saying. So guys, on the one level, am I hearing you that we are acknowledging that there are the positives and the pros to actually being online? Like Present is also saying you can learn online because you can go back to the recordings in preparation for your tests or your exams. And I think that's a benefit. The boring part is connectivity, and some lecturers are very strict with time. Okay, yeah, I suppose, connectivity is one of the things that we have no control over. So it becomes a huge challenge. Look, Nicole, you're also mentioning something very, very interesting because paying attention to online is not easy. I struggle with online lectures. I really do struggle. If I've got to listen to a webinar or a talk, I find myself doing everything else but paying attention to that talk. And I hope that it's recorded or I'm not going to be asked a question about it. So as a student, I can only begin to imagine the struggles. But I know what worked for me. Maybe I can share with you something that you should start developing. And maybe I can assist you in later sessions on this, is a work. You've got to work a timetable for yourself using certain hours during the day. As an undergrad student back in the day, I could only afford to study through UNISA. And with that came the need for me to actually set a timetable for myself, where I literally physically had to write in a book, 8 a.m. till 10 a.m., you will study. Then 10 till 10:15, you will, have a smoke break. And then 10:15 till 12:15, you study. And it took me some time to get into that routine, but you have to develop something. As much as you may be struggling with these online spaces, I think that there is something everyone needs to develop because regardless of where you are at, then your study routine will be in place. But let me ask you guys again this. You're telling me a few things about this online space. What about Moodle and the sorts of interaction you get from lecturers on Moodle through your modules? Do you think that that is a reflection of hybrid learning? And I don't want lecturers' names. I just want you to reflect on your experience per se. I know there are quite a number of students from psychology, so they might be feeling slightly spotlighted here. So I'm going to see if there are students from other departments. At this point, I don't need to know which department you are from. But what has it been like? Or maybe let me rephrase the question. In an ideal world, what would you like to see on Moodle when you click onto, self-esteem and psychology? Let's say module 101 for your particular program. What would you like to see on that front page? What sort of information and stuff, resources would you like? Do you just want it to be blank so you know there's nothing you have to study? Nathaniel?
I found not all of my modules have had this, but the modules that do have been very useful. The quizzes on Moodle per chapter or per unit have been very useful because otherwise we don't have any interaction with questioning styles or anything like that before we get hit by the tests.
I like that, before you get hit by the test. And here's the thing about not having your face-to-face lectures. Usually your lecturers would give you an indication of how they think, by posing certain questions to you in a real-time situation. So I like this idea. How many of you in the room agree with what Nathaniel has stated, that the quizzes per chapter? So at the end of each, module of, week's lecture content, I see many hands going up. That would be useful, right? And maybe not even quizzes, maybe depending on the year you in, maybe if you're in a third year lecture or module, then maybe it could be an open-ended question for critical debate and discussion that the lecturer can put certain points within there. It doesn't have to be a full-on answer, but you can have an open-ended question. Would that also work? Or are you guys more aligned to the quiz? Previous question papers are also a very good idea, present, but I also think that is a little bit of a tricky one because then your lecturers are left with having to redefine their questions every single year. Okay, so we sometimes do repeat a certain number of the questions from the previous test into the current test. Nati, your hand was up.
Prof, I think I'm actually just getting a little bit of nostalgia, but I relate to this answer because what we had in my fourth year was a 5% component of a reflective paragraph of each lecture. So after each lecture, you had to write a paragraph of what you learned in the lecture, how you could apply it into your pracs or even into practice, as well as what more would you have liked to discuss or engage on. And that counted for 5%. So it had a weight. So you kind of had to do it. But even if you didn't do it, it wasn't like, it was going to affect you in a way, but it was that 5% in case you needed 5%, it was there in the background lingering. So yeah, I think that's another way that, could have students kind of reflect on the session, on the lesson.
That's a good thing. Simone, I see you've also got your hand up. Let me take your question.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so something that was done as well in some of my previous years and previous semesters, but it was actually done by HR lecturers, funny enough, so it was kind of soul draining in that context. But what they did was they would split us up into little like discussion forums. So they'd pose a question and then be like, okay, you guys discuss it, and then when we come back to the main group, we can see which points were raised and everything. And I think for a lot of psychology students, online learning is really lonely. And I think a lot of us are very passionate about psychology, and just about everyone I've met who studies psychology generally has these little passionate rants about something they found interesting in a textbook or in a slide or whatever. And I think like for psychology as well, it'd be nice for a lecturer to pose a question and be like, okay, use a bit of your own knowledge and your own thinking and discuss this and tell me what you guys think about it. Because I think like I said with HR, it was really boring and I hated discussion forums, but I would like it for psychology because it's what we're passionate about. And I think it helps you speak to like-minded individuals in a time where we don't necessarily have that, what we would have had in a classroom.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying there, Simone. It's so important to actually have these reflections or these sorts of practical activities and discussions that are linked to your qualification. I know Nati is a social worker. She's talking about, how would you apply this into your lives in terms of some of the reflections they needed to do. In psychology, we've got something very similar, and the other departments as well have things that are very different. If you think about your emergency care students, right? They've got to know how to swim. They've got to know how to do certain physical activities. They've got to complete things within certain time frames, speed frames, etc. So each discipline comes with its specific set of requirements. And I know students are itching for more practical experiences and this work integrated learning, especially at the undergrad level. And as a faculty, we're very aware of this. We're very aware of this. And we're attempting to find these projects that do exist where the students can fit in. So one of it is called the Interprofessional Education Project, or IPE. And it hasn't been something that, it's taken off over the past couple of years, and now there's going to be a reintegration of this. And I know with the medical school that has come in, it'll be great for us to even engage with some of the medical students and bring them into this domain, right? With what it is that we're trying to create. So guys, I just want to get a show of hands in terms of this discussion. Is it making sense what it is that I'm trying to establish with you as students and student representatives from your departments in the health sciences, where we are trying to speak about, and I'm seeing many of the hands and the hearts going up, so I'm taking that as a positive, that I'm really trying to bring into your domain of thinking and being, that learning and teaching is something you must keep critical and at the forefront, the way in which learning and teaching is taking place. And the reasons why we actually have certain modules set the way they set. It's not because we've just thumb suck and we enjoy these things. It's based on requirements that come from, the university, the CHE, other regulatory boards, and all together now with this whole online space of learning and teaching has become a bit of a spiderweb situation, and student and lecturer are trying to find themselves in a succinct, healthy relationship where the two are actually speaking to each other, where we are teaching in a certain manner, but your students are actually learning from that process. And the only way we're going to enhance that is by bringing your voices into the space. So thank you for sharing this with me today. I really do appreciate your participation and your input here. I'm not going to drag this on any longer because I don't want it, the space to turn into that. I want to check from Carmen and Nati. Do they have anything else to share?
Yeah, I'm all good. Thank you, Prof Ali. You gave a nice introduction to sessions.
And what I am thinking, maybe, sorry, I just got this idea, guys. Maybe for the next session, we could actually host it on campus. So we have a nice debate, maybe in, a conference room, whatever it is, have a few coffees or teas before, and we can just recreate some sort of a lecture hall interaction where we're talking, learning, and teaching in a very real space. I think that would be a good idea. Nati, any last words from your side? Oh no, she said she's with a student at the door. I just saw the message there. Nati's always busy assisting, guys, so we're going to excuse her. Thank you very much for giving me your time. I really appreciate it. Do have a wonderful afternoon further, and I will definitely be in contact with you all very soon. Keep well, guys. Bye.